What is community recruiting and how can it help you advance your career? Our guest today is Reno Perry. He is the founder and CEO of Wiseful, which is a career advancement platform that helps professionals land their dream job and advance their careers. And before starting Wiseful, Reno worked at companies like Betterup and LinkedIn, where he helped coach professionals and connected thousands of job seekers to amazing job opportunities. And so I'm really excited to have him here today. He's actually built a list of over 20,000 plus laid off employees and has been helping them get back to the office by connecting them to thousands of companies. And so I think this is going to be really, really beneficial if you're out there looking for a job or even maybe thinking about preparing for that next move. And so we're just excited to have him here. Reno, welcome to the Leaders Transformation.
Excited to be here. Thank you.
We're excited to have you. And I always want to do a shout out to the person who has, or the company or whatever that has connected us. And Shivang from Podman was the one who gave us this introduction. And so thank you to him for
Yes.
doing that. We appreciate you. And I'm a connector. I love connecting amazing people together. And so, and I'm just so grateful for all the people that send us great guests. So thank you to him. So let's talk about, first of all, when we're talking about recruiting, finding your dream job, let's talk first of all about layoffs. And you were part
Yeah.
of one of the largest studies on layoffs. Tell us a little bit about that and what you learned out of it.
Yeah, definitely. So, seems so long ago when we when we started doing this, but uh, you alluded to this earlier. We started a central layoff list that primarily started for folks in tech. A lot of listeners might remember early 2022 is when these mass layoffs started happening again, aside from COVID, but really started happening in early 2022. And we thought it was going to be another short-term stint of layoffs like we saw in 2020, but unfortunately, we've seen that sustained through the year 2022, 2023. Even now, early 2024, we're starting to see some layoffs that were a little bit unexpected. So this was, long story short, a short-term project that we started in 2022, which really started as a way to just help people. There wasn't any agenda with it. There really isn't now. We just said, hey, we know so many great people in our networks that are losing their jobs, but there's still a lot of companies out there hiring. There wasn't really any central repository or resource that was able to connect those folks to companies. So we decided that, hey, let's go out and build that thing and just be the resource for people who are laid off and just looking to get connected with companies that are still hiring.
So, what are the biggest problems with traditional recruiting methods? And even I think about you, like you worked at LinkedIn. I mean, that's a tool. So, what's the issue with all of those tools that were out there that that you saw maybe a gap in there that you needed to solve?
Oh, how long do we have? I think there's a long list if people, well, for both sides, the hiring managers, the recruiters, but then even job seekers, the industry, the practices in the industry have really been the same for years or decades. And it's a big reason why anytime the job search gets talked about, there's a lot of people that are disenfranchised by it or roll their eyes. You can think of certain gaps that have just always existed, whether it's candidates not getting the right kind of communication or updates from companies, or companies that for the longest time aren't able to find the right candidates and they spend so much time and admin work on recruiting related functions. So there's a lot there. But in terms of my business and why I started my own company in this space was I recognized where you could say where the puck is going in terms of recruiting and the way people discover jobs. And this really started around 2020 in the midst of the pandemic. There was obviously everybody was in lockdown, and so with that was an explosion of people that were turning to online communities, online venues to not just get together with folks, but learn and engage in a way that they weren't able to do in real life. And I like to think that it wasn't a new thing that was happening. It just accelerated the pace at which we were seeing people engaged online. And as we were seeing people in places like Twitter or X or on LinkedIn, or maybe they're in Slack groups or Reddit servers, interacting with each other, we thought that was a great medium for sharing job opportunities with people where they were naturally spending their time. And so it really became a platform of meeting people where they are in terms of how they spend time online and being able to reach them in a different way with job opportunities that also felt more natural. They didn't have to go to a job board, or people weren't reaching out to them directly for jobs. They were finding it in a way organically in these communities. So that was the genesis of what we were doing. And at LinkedIn, I noticed that they weren't really investing in community or groups or people that can bring folks together. And so I decided to go out and create something like that on my own.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many talented people, and you alluded to it, looking for jobs, and so many companies, and they say there's this talent shortage. And yet at the same time, there's people out there that could do the job, and it's just this disconnect. And
Yeah.
what you said there about these online communities. So how does that work? Like I think about it logistically. Is it somebody posts and says, "Hey, I'm looking for this job," or is it some company that says, "Hey, I'm looking for this role to be filled," and like who's doing the searching, or is it mutual?
Yeah, it's great. So the way our platform works, I like to think of it as we're helping companies tap into exclusive networks of online communities and industry experts. So very different than what a job board or a traditional headhunter does. And the way that we engage with people in those networks or communities is we've spent the last few years tapping community administrators, industry experts to really get a hold of their networks. And these networks and communities are really everywhere that people spend time online. So it could be, um, let's say somebody subscribed to a newsletter that they tune into every week, or maybe they listen to a podcast every week, similar to your podcast here. They're a loyal listener, maybe. Or they could be in a Slack group of, I'll give an example. Let's say it's a salesperson who's just trying to get better at their craft and connect with other folks in sales. They might be part of a Slack group that has 1,000 people in, let's say, tech sales that are all doing the same thing. They all have a shared common goal of learning from each other and connecting. We would define that as a community or a network. And so we're tapping into all these little niche networks that aren't easily accessible through, let's say, a Google search. If you wanted to find that community, you probably wouldn't find it. But we're gathering all those types of communities and networks and then putting jobs into those communities for companies that need to hire. So if you're a company and you said, "Hey, I'm trying to find those salespeople," we would push your job out to that community, but we would also do it to hundreds of other communities that we're connected to.
Yeah, it's so smart and yet so obvious when you think about sales and marketing. I mean, yes, there's attraction marketing, right? You want them to find you. But when you think about, I've always said this, I've been in sales for decades and talking to salespeople, it's like, who are you looking for? Who's your ideal audience, target market,
Hmm.
and where do they hang out? And
Yep.
so if I'm a company and I want to hire somebody, it would make sense to go where they hang out, which is what you're doing. It's brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a great salesperson, you're probably not spending a ton of time on Indeed or Monster or hanging out in those places. You're probably finding out about job opportunities from your network or people you trust. And so the way we think about it is we're really tapping into that trust and network, but doing it at scale in a way that companies can take advantage, and also candidates. They get to find opportunities from trusted resources.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, do you know the percentage of jobs that are even previous to your service, which would be secured through networks? I think it's like 70 or 80%. It's like a high number, right? Where they generally you go through your network to find if do you know anybody to fill that position first?
Yeah, it's a pretty high number. I think I've seen anything range from 50 to 80%, as high as that in terms of where people discover opportunities. And then as you progress through your career, that number may tend to increase as well as you accumulate more contacts in the industry. So it's a pretty high number. And the challenge with um, the, finding out for opportunities from your network on the job seeker side is at a certain point you may tap out in terms of the number of opportunities that you discover through your network,
Right.
because you have a certain amount of contacts or connections and they only know about a certain amount of opportunities. And then on the company side, that they also see that same problem is companies love referrals. If you can get a rock star referral from an employee, send me as many of those folks as possible, is what they would say. But it's very unpredictable and it's too far and few between. It's not really a scalable method of recruiting. And so what we're doing is taking that approach and making it scalable for companies where they can actually reliably get referrals in a sense from trusted sources, and then candidates get to discover more opportunities through their networks. So it's a win-win the way we look at it.
So what do companies need to know when they're obviously they work with you, then you can help them do this.
Yep.
And in that ad or whatever, what do they need to know about designing that so that they
Mm.
actually get the right candidates to raise their hands? It's like marketing, right? They're marketing on that side. And then of course on the flip side, as a candidate,
Yep.
how does a candidate put their best foot forward? What do they need to be including in that, that response?
Yeah. So my short response is it's really easy on both sides. For a candidate, if you are opting into a job or you're filling out a profile with us, ensuring that as much information as possible so that you can get matched up with the right opportunities. And then a company, one of the unique pieces of how our model works is you don't need to get super creative with design or copy or ads. The information gets shared by the industry experts in the communities in the way that they typically share content. And so in a sense, you're almost outsourcing the creative to the communities because they're the ones sharing content regularly. They know how to really highlight your company and what makes it great. But I will say for companies that to make it easy, you should be trying to highlight as many great things as possible about your culture, the leadership, any growth potential, a lot of the factors that candidates consider in a job, pay range, being transparent about that. The more information you have around those pieces, the more you'll be able to draw in really great people because they expect to see that information.
Yeah. So from the candidate side, when you said as much information as possible on their end, what type of information is the most valuable, I guess? Because it's like the resume, right? I got a 3 4 page resume, and it's like that's at some point they tune out. They're not paying attention. There's certain things they're looking for.
Yep. And so we will take that 3 4 page resume. One of the nice things about our platform is if you sign up and create a profile and you upload your resume, we use our tech, our AI to parse through that information so that nothing gets lost in translation when you're being put in front of a company. And so um, we'll take as much information as we have. So if it's a 3 4 page resume, past industries that you've worked in, current industry, things like job titles, skills is really big, especially for a lot of the technical folks. That's a must have, just including as many skills and technologies and tools as possible that you've used. And so that's a big part of it is making sure that you're all that typical resume profile info is filled out. And we guide people through that experience too. So we'll let you know what information we need that will help us determine which companies that you'll get matched up to.
Got it. Now, these influencers or hosts of these communities,
Yep.
what's in it for them?
So this is also another unique part of our model is a lot of them. Well, first I'll say a lot of them do it because they're genuinely interested in adding value to their audience or their community, and sharing jobs is a non threatening way. It's a non-salesy way to present opportunities to people. But also they get paid for it. In simple terms, it's a rev share model. So if they have folks from their communities who end up getting interviews or ultimately get a job with certain companies, they see a benefit from that. And so I think that really helps in terms of long-term partnerships that we have so that it's also a form of revenue that they might not have had previously. Because a lot of community members, even just regular folks that are trying to help someone get a job, a lot of times they do that for free. And they may connect people. In this case, we're helping them monetize off of something that they've probably already been doing already.
Yeah, it reminds me of when I was running, I still have the group, but I'm not as active with it, a Facebook group for my past podcast guests. And it turned into this podcast interview sharing, hosts and guests.
Oh,
And I was just, I mean, somebody came to me and said, "Hey, do you know any guests that'll be good for my show?" And based on his topic, I'm like, "Yeah, here's 50 people. That should keep you busy for a while." you know, and it's fun. It's fun to do that. And, or referring. I've done a lot of referring in the past because I love networking and connecting with people, sending them referrals if they're recruiting for different jobs or whatever. And it is fun to do that. And then at the same time, you can do so much of that it's like, okay, well, wait a second here. So how do I do this and make this sustainable and scalable that I can actually even hire somebody to take that role on and
yeah.
continue it, as opposed to, because it does actually end up at some point, it starts to take a lot of time. So that's good.
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to be the only ones benefiting. I think there's plenty of opportunity for these community folks, administrators, influencers, industry experts to benefit too.
So they go on your platform, and whether it's a company or whether it's a candidate, they can put their information in there, and then you'll start doing the matching from there. And then influencers as well, they go on
Yeah,
the platform as well.
it's sort of like a three-headed monster or three-way marketplace in a sense where you have companies that come to our platform to push jobs out to communities and hire talent. We have the actual influencers, creators, or industry experts, really anyone who has a network or an audience, they can sign up and they're able to push jobs out to the community. Right now, it's not a free for all marketplace on the creator side. It's invite only at this time. And then the candidates, of course, in the communities, when they see job opportunities, they'll be prompted to sign up through our platform and opt into the job, and that's how these companies are able to see the candidates.
Got it. Now there's one other thing I know that LinkedIn. You used to work with LinkedIn.
Yep.
uh, for the and branding, right? In terms of how people can brand themselves on
Yep.
LinkedIn.
Mm.
What are some recommendations? Like, I know things change and algorithms and all that kind of thing. What are some of the most important um, things that people need to be making sure are part of their LinkedIn? And it does apply to you, because then I'm sure that they go and they check somebody's LinkedIn to see if,
Of course.
yeah.
Yep. LinkedIn is a great complementary piece to your resume or any profile you create on any job platform, not just ours. But to your point, uh, every recruiter and hiring manager I know, wherever they discover your resume or your profile, the next action that they will typically take is go to your LinkedIn profile. And they're corroborating information, or maybe they're looking for something new. And so the first piece I would say is ensure that every part of your LinkedIn profile is maximized and filled out with particular attention to skills. And so I see a ton of profiles that might have their work experience included, but they're not using the right skills. They may not even have the skills section filled out. Because oftentimes a lot of these recruiters or hiring managers, if they are searching on LinkedIn for you, they're searching by skills. And so I would heavily index in terms of having the right skills mixed into there. But also a big piece of it is really engaging with the community. So having a solid profile is table stakes, but if you wanted to go beyond that, and I recommend people do, is engage with the hiring managers, the recruiters, those communities on LinkedIn, where you know those folks reside. Because every hiring manager and recruiter I know has a LinkedIn profile. They're looking at people on LinkedIn. LinkedIn in itself has become more of a place where content is being shared, where the conversation around certain business topics is now happening in a way that wasn't happening a few years ago. And so it's really easy for you to insert yourself into that business conversation, either commenting on posts and sharing your insights, or maybe posting yourself. And so there is an opportunity there, I think, to build your own brand in a way that didn't exist previously.
Got it. Yeah. And kind of a logistical, finer detail question is, I know a lot of times titles There's different approaches to titles, keywords, some of the
Yep.
skills, and then other people are like make it interesting and fun, and it's certainly not a keyword
Mm.
search optimized,
Yeah, I
statement.
think
What's your
that's
thought on that?
yeah, and that's part of why I said heavily index on skills and competencies because another pitfall I see a lot of folks on LinkedIn will do is to your point, they will put a lot of fluff and some adjectives, or maybe they will put things in terms of soft skills, things like charismatic leader or marketing guru or ninja. And so, a lot of that information, no recruiter is ever searching for that information. So for that, I'll put that out there first. So, but they are searching for AWS or cloud-based skills. They are searching for certain programming languages. They are searching for if you know how to use certain platforms. And so, um, if you're looking to be discovered, that's one of the easiest things you can do is cut the fluff and really focus on skills and competencies because those phrases, those keywords are the ones that most commonly get you shared. And then I don't know if this is what you were alluding to. The other piece I would say in terms of titles. So a lot of people don't think that they can get creative with their title. But the way I recommend being creative with your title is not through fluff or fancy words, but it's really just aligning your title with the job title of the roles that you're applying to or that the industry has. And the reason I say that is this will also help you get discovered. If, for example, a lot of companies have different titles for different roles, but essentially they might be doing the same thing. And a lot of times, recruiters, again, hiring managers will take that. I don't want to call it a tunnel vision approach, but a lot of times they will look at titles as a way to correlate with what kind of job they're hiring for. And so we were talking about sales earlier. Sales is a great example of where folks may be doing the same thing in a role. Maybe you're talking to prospects, you're running demonstrations, you're trying to close a prospect, but there could be 20 different titles for that role. I was doing that role actually earlier in my career, same thing, talking to customers, closing deals. And the official title of that was a product specialist at my company. But I was trying to go to apply to new jobs and they were called account executive. And so that was one example of where I got creative with my title to on LinkedIn and on my resume to just put account executive. And the hits in terms of my resume and people reaching out was pretty high compared to if I just had product specialists. I was getting a lot of irrelevant jobs. So that's one example in terms of creativity with title I might take a look at.
So what I hear in that is do a little researching on what people are actually searching for and align with that as it makes sense to the job. That's good. What about, and I know I'm grilling, I feel like I'm grilling you. Sometimes it's just very, we have these conversations here. I'm just like,
It's
what about
okay.
this? What about that? What about this?
Yeah, let's
Uh,
grill away, please.
so, how do people set themselves apart? Because even on your platform, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to apply for a position. And so, how do you set yourself apart, without doing the song and dance, but like literally, what are the things that, and I guess that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier too with the resume,
Mhm.
that I need to speak to that I may not, that I might take for granted, but that a hiring manager is really looking for in terms of whether accomplishments or specific skills or what's going to help me to stand out. Not me,
Yeah,
I'm
so
not looking for a job, by the way.
yeah, no, of course.
So,
Sure,
but
sure. No, I'm just kidding. It, it's funny because I get this question a lot in terms of what can I do on my resume or my profile to stand out more? And I always hate giving this answer, but in terms of resume, I like to say that boring is better first. So I'm gonna put that out there.
really,
But not boring in a sense that you're not including the right information. In terms of things like formatting, uh, style, the simplest resumes are usually the best. Things that don't have those crazy designs or headshots or anything like that. Because a lot of people think standing out and they try to get fancy with it. But every recruiter and hiring manager I know is trained to just look past all of that. And so don't do that is what I'll caveat. But in terms of standing out, it's really again going back to the boring basics, including what you had mentioned in terms of accomplishments, being able to share any numbers that you can. And this is where I want to focus on this because a lot of times I get pushback when I say quantify as much as possible in the resume. People have heard that advice for decades, for years. But a lot of people will say, well, there's some things that I just can't quantify, or I did things at my role that I don't know if I can put a number to it. And that's usually not true after we work together. There's always something you can connect to, even if it's indirectly. So if you were working in marketing or um, customer support or implementation, or solutions engineering, let's just say, you have the metrics for your role, but you're also deeply connected to the outcome, which would be sales that are delivered. And so you can include how your efforts helped drove X amount of sales. And so there's always something you can do in terms of digging down and looking at ways to quantify what you actually did in your role and how it helped impact the business. So that's one piece. Try to stay away from responsibilities. So an easy hack people like to do with resumes is they'll pack a resume with a ton of text and information, but it's essentially as if it looks as if they just copy and pasted the job description and put it into the resume. And so that's another piece of advice I would give is try to stay away from leaning too heavily on job responsibilities and tasks and really focus on the accomplishments, achievements, and the results because every recruiter, hiring manager I know, again, they are looking for those things and they fixate on them. They will scan a resume and they'll instantly know where to look for and understand that they're looking for that kind of impact statements and numbers. So that would be my piece is really focus on those aspects of the resume. And it doesn't sound fancy. It's not a crazy hack, but believe me, if you are consistent with that, it's one of the best ways to stand out to other recruiters and hiring managers.
Yeah. Show them how you can be an asset to their company, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Awesome. So where does someone get started? So they go to your website and you also have this list. Do you still use that list or is this now integrated into your to your
It's
website?
funny, sort of. So I always I kept telling myself this would be a short-term project. But I would recommend if somebody is a candidate that they go to our list. So they can actually go to our website. It's wiseful.co/the list. And that's actually our layoff list. And if anybody here has been laid off, it's a great way to sign up and get your name on this list. So, like I said, there's at any given time over 20,000 folks on here, but there's over 6,000 companies that have signed up to use it. So, a lot of great exposure. We've helped thousands of people land jobs and likely a ton more that have gotten interviews. It's just not something we can easily track. But it's a really great place if you've been laid off or you think you might be laid off, just to save that as a resource. If you sign up as a candidate on that list, you'll also um, be included as a candidate on our main platform, which is just wiseful.co. If you're not laid off, you can just go to wiseful.co and create a candidate profile, and we can get you matched up with companies that are using our platform to hire.
Awesome. Thanks, Reno. I really appreciate it. Is there anything that I didn't ask that is important to address before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the best. I mean, I would just say for the environment that we're moving into this year, it seems like we'll continue to have rolling layoffs. And my advice would be don't expect that we're over that hill or that things are just going to get better because it's been so long. I think we'll be in a sustained environment of rolling layoffs and a lot of unexpected things happening depending on your industry and just always being prepared in terms of having an updated resume, consistently making efforts to network and reach out to folks outside of your company is something I might recommend folks practice throughout the year.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just going to say that like that whole preparation. So years ago, I worked with this organization that was helping executives in transition. And what I found is LinkedIn was kind of new at the time, and a lot of them weren't on it. They had no network. And so they were just relying on the people that they knew in their company, and they found themselves out of a job and very successful, like 50s 60s even, where they had built this career, but they didn't nurture that network that you were just talking about, and reaching out to people and staying connected. And so because of that, they had to start from scratch and build up. After, while they're looking, they had to do that. Whereas if they had created and established that beforehand, because most of them were like, well, why do I need it? I'm busy. I'm president of a company. I don't care. Right. I don't care
Yeah.
about all that stuff. I'm busy. I'm doing the things, until they cared, because they were now looking for, a new opportunity. And then it became very important. So yeah, to do that ahead of time is important. And
Yeah,
yeah,
actually, and one more thing before we go, you brought up a good point is when we were looking at information on folks from our layoff list who were landing new jobs after getting laid off, um, there were some folks landing jobs with remarkable speed, 2, 3, 4 weeks after getting laid off. And when we reached out to them, oftentimes it was opportunities through their network that they were able to find. And then folks who landed jobs that didn't come through a network, or maybe they didn't have as strong of a network, they were taking 4, 5, 6, 7 months to find a new opportunity. And so it really does matter. It's one of the best safety nets you can have when the unexpected happens.
yeah, got it. Reno, thank you so much. This has been helpful. And I know that job seekers out there, or even people that want to just keep themselves in the game and make sure that they've got options. I think they're going to find this really, really valuable. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, happy to help. Hope it helps some folks out. And if anybody is open to it, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I try to post daily just tips for career growth. Anyone that's on the job search and whatnot, give them some helpful information.
Yeah. And as a podcast host, little side note is that I'm not hiring, for jobs and stuff, but I always look on LinkedIn. And so I looked on your LinkedIn, and I'm like, wow, not for just for the volume of people, like you've got 260,000 people that you're connected to. It's not that. It's who's listening to what he has to say, who's in the conversation, right? How many people are paying attention? And you've got a lot of people paying attention to the content, which means the content is really valuable. And so, which obviously I checked out as well. And
Oh,
so,
thank you.
thank you for that. And it's just also a tip for those people who want to get on podcast shows. Hey, LinkedIn, get yourself on there and be visible, so that people can get to know you and get to know your content and the audience that that is interested in what you have to say. So it's a good litmus test. So as for Reno, what he is doing, go to wiseful.co. That's their website. We'll make sure it's in the show notes as well. And of course, you can find us on LinkedIn. If you can find us on Leaders of Transformation. I got LinkedIn on the brain. Leadersoftransformation.com, on social. Of course, we're all over social. And we'd love to hear how this has impacted you. If there's anything we can do to help you and support you along your journey, please let us know. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening in, and hope this has been very valuable to you. And we look forward to seeing you next week on another episode of the Leaders of Transformation.